by and large, I can kind of get away with murder with how I route things and how many instances of plugins I use. So, paying extra for different hardware to accelerate plugins that I kind of had native versions of that just weren't the universal audio version anyway, didn't seem that alluring to me. Also, with the way that I engineer records, I move around a lot because I mix on headphones, which I know is blasphemous, but I think is becoming more popular now that the VSX stuff is out and everyone's like, oh, it's just like monitors. I haven't tried it yet. Maybe that's something else I'll try. Tangent, sorry. But because I mix on headphones, I work in a lot of different places. And the other thing is too, like I travel the world doing records. So I could be in Belgium or I could be wherever. And I want to take my workflow with me at all times. So anyway, Spark comes out and it basically means that you can run select not native instruments, universal audio plugins on your computers locally. And it means that I don't have to disrupt my whole thing. All right, that's enough blabbing. Let's actually listen to some of these and I'll tell you what I think. If you follow my work at all or followed Fast Track Academy or my instructional videos, whatever, you'll notice that I use the 2500 as a stereo bus drum compressor all the time. So here's a beginning of a song. I'll let you hear it in context and then we'll sort of get into the drums a little bit.
The weight you would carry is nothing compared to the time till it's over for you. And I got a secret.
So these are really close to the settings that I use on the Waves version. For this particular song, I've slowed the attack down. Like when I use the Waves one, I'm often more down here with the super fast attack. What I'm finding is this one is more heavy-handed at the same gain reduction settings. I've matched the settings almost exactly. I don't have the Waves one up anymore, but it is definitely more aggressive. It sounds like it's doing more, but in a good way. I mean, clearly I'm deep into the mix here and I still have the UA one up. So I do like it more than the Waves one, I think. I'm not going to belabor every plugin or every part of every plugin because this video would be 1,000 years long and I have to get back to work. But I am going to sort of blast through the different ones that I liked and use in my experiences. One thread that's going to be consistent here is that I find that these UA plugins sort of do something that I've had trouble finding with other plugins, and that's come to, I guess it's like harmonics and gain, like doing distortion in the way that I like to do it out of the box, closer to how I like to do it with analog gear and getting nice results like I get out of the box. It's weird. It's like distortion for your tracks, but it's pleasant, much like when you turn up a really nice like Class A tube amp, it sounds more pleasant as well. So let me exemplify that a little bit. So we just played with the 2500. I'll bypass that. I'm also going to bypass, this was on when we heard that. Oh, I can't because I've automated this. I can turn it off though. This is the drums without the 2500 and without this tape saturation. This tape saturation sounds really good. I think it's the best I've used. I'm pretty sure it is. Again, it's a little early to be making calling things on that level, but now let's turn the tape saturation on. Do you hear what I'm saying about like, it's not overtly distorted, but it is a little chunkier or crispier in a good way. And that's the thing I always have such a hard time finding in the box is when I want to turn like almost like the gain up of the drums in a weird way, but it feels just like heavy handed or weird. So these two things really play together nicely, I think. Hopefully that makes sense. And I was so inspired by the fact that that worked so well. I had been talking to Elliot about the vocals and, originally like on his old records, like the vocals are pretty distorted. Then we rolled it back in the earlier mixes and we were like, no, like you're a great singer. Like just let them breathe entirely. Then we sort of found that maybe a middle ground was what we wanted. And we had been leaning on, distortion processors that have been around for a long time. After I heard what that could do with the drums, I was like, oh, let me try that trick on vocals and see how that works. Here we have a vocal, obviously. And this is just kind of how it came in. There's some post effects on it. It's fine. We're mostly going to be talking about these two processors here. So this is this like new Century tube channel strip. Long story short, it sounds great. And we already know this sounds great too. But let's just check out like how this can transform things. So this is the vocal as it came in. We used a great signal chain. There's a distressor in there, the whole thing.
The weight you would carry is nothing compared to the...
Okay, now I will turn on the tube channel strip.
The weight you would carry is nothing compared to the time.
Sounds really good. I know it's way louder, but this opto leveler is really, really smooth. So I like that. And then for a little bit of aesthetic texture, we bumped this tape machine here.
The weight you would carry is nothing compared to the time.
So we're very much in the pros category of the UA stuff right now. Let's get into the less pro. So pros, the plugins sound awesome. I'm not going to get into it, but like the 2A sounds great. The 76 sounds great. All of this stuff, like where we're emulating natural hardware, sounds really great. And I think that's kind of UA's whole bag. You know, I like to use a lot of stuff that is intentionally digital too, right? So this is good to have when you want what hardware does in the box. That's cool. But I was trying to get into some more like creative things, and I found it a little bit annoying. Like some of the modulation and delay stuff didn't suit my needs exactly how like I like to work. It sounds good, but I don't know. It wasn't as good for me as like what I'm typically used to using in my workflows. All right, for example, here's another song. I wanted to use this waterfall rotary. It seemed like a really cool plugin, and I didn't have that much already that did exactly this, and it seemed like it'd be a cool fit for the intro of this song. So I'm going to play this, and you know, it does sound very good.
Take your time, forgetting how it feels to be alone for 20 years.
Cool. And let me turn it off so you can kind of hear what that passage sounds like without it.
Take your time, forgetting how it feels to be alone for 20 years. The day.
And I think for some people, my gripe here might be a minor gripe, but with modern plugins, I just like feel like everything should have a wet dry, because what I had to do is not a big deal, but I just really want to use this for this intro passage. I don't want to have to set up a whole nother channel, which I've done down here. But because it doesn't have a wet dry, and I certainly don't want the vocal to be 100%, you know, filtered through this plugin, although I did try, you know, I have to set up an aux, and then I have to send this out to the rotary, and then I have to write, you know, automation for this. And I know it only takes a few minutes, but it does take more DSP. And I just kind of wish, this is so gripey, but I just like wish everything had a little mix knob on here, because my typical workflow would be throw this on in the insert path, figure out, you know, what sound I like, mix that sound in, and then just automate the mix in and out based on how much I want, you know, when I want. I had the same issue with the choruses and the Galaxy Echo. They all sound awesome, but you kind of just have to run them as a send. This won't be a problem for people who, if that's just how you normally work, then no big deal. For me, it was just like a little bit of a workflow hiccup. And I like it, like I said before, I like it when plugins do things that will let either workflow sort of prevail. So if you're a send guy, go for it. If you're an insert and mix knob guy, well then go for that. You know, am I going to keep this plugin bundle? It's $20 a month. It's like not the end of the world, but it's a little thin. Like I really am going to have to do the math on, do I like the textures of the API 2500 and some of this saturation stuff enough that I can't live without it? I think I'll probably take a little time when I'm done with this to A/B and shoot that out, just because, I don't know. It seems like a little thin. The package feels like not as fully featured. Like you can get a Plugin Alliance bundle for roughly the same money and get a jillion different plugins that probably cover like everything you could possibly need. So I don't know. I wanted to try it. I'm going to sit with it, but I think it's at least definitely worth trying. And the plugins do sound really good. I wish they had slightly more modern features, basically a mix knob. And I just wish that it came with more. And I know that they're saying like more and more are coming, and maybe there's some sort of like programming effort and UI effort and stuff that has to go along with porting these to being able to run on native CPUs. Couldn't tell you. But yeah, I would give it a shot if I were you and you're even a little bit interested. It's free to try and they sound great.